What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch. First and foremost, we're going to have to get this out of the way. A big thank you to everybody who has subscribed to our channel. We just hit 300,000 subscribers in quite a quick amount of time, and us three are blown away by the support that this channel's received. We thank you guys so much that you enjoy the content, and we want to keep churning it out for you. We love doing this channel, and we couldn't be more happy that so many gamers out there enjoy it as well. Now, on to the meat of this video. First and foremost, I can speak for all three of us that we love Overwatch where it is right now. We think the meta is great. A lot of heroes are viable. A lot of playstyles are viable. Maybe a few tweaks to some game modes would be in order, or introducing new maps or new game modes. We'd like that as well. Replay system, all sorts of stuff that are on our wish list. But for the most part, the game's in a great state. We love where it is. What we don't like, as I've already voiced in a previous video, is the ranking system. Now, this is sort of a follow-up to the win streaks are a problem video, and I want to cover some subjects that I didn't have time to break down in that video, which is equally as important to the ranking system and why it isn't working for us as a community as we'd like it to, because that video got a very positive response, which I had no idea if it would or not, by the way, but it seems a lot of us do feel this way, that the ranking system is not right. So I'm going to try to break down where we're coming from on this channel and how we'd like to see it work. First and foremost, it has to be said, two things. Overwatch is a team game and it's an esports game. Sometimes I get an impression that a lot of players want to treat this game casually or prefer the way the ranking system works now, where it's essentially engineered for what I would describe a selfish playstyle rather than a team-based one, in the way that the SR system rewards you. Some players might like that, but I think it is integrally damaging for the community who want to actually learn the game, and I'll try to break down why that is. I think it's important to note that other games do this fine. A game like CSGO, which by the way has a lot of stuff in it that isn't very competitive at all, a lot of RNG, a lot of issues that make it less competitive than it otherwise could be, but not to bore you with all that, but there's sort of this assumption around CSGO that it's a competitive game. And sometimes I wonder if it's just the culture of the game that changes, but I also think it's inherent in the way the matchmaking works in that game compared to Overwatch. In CSGO, each tier of ranks had skill sets that you could identify, and then when you came up against them as you moved through the ranking system, you would be forced to learn. You physically could not get past certain ranks without understanding some core aspects of the game. If you're, say, like DMG, and you don't know crosshair placement, some timings, or economy, you're likely not going to get up one more rank. And even if you do, you're not getting past that next rank. Because at each rank, you can identify the skill set of what that rank represents, what those types of players are good at, when the gun still starts to go up, but the game sense might not be there. And as you go up and up, players become more and more complete in their mastery of the game, and everything fits in its place. Overwatch is not this way in any way, and it's unfortunate, because the game's so great. I love the competitive aspects of this game, but I think the way that the matchmaking system operates fundamentally disincentivizes team play and rewards solo QE playstyles. One important aspect that I think the majority of the community has already figured out, by the way, which a lot of these behind-the-scenes manipulations to an ELO system and a matchmaker, they work theoretically when the community doesn't know how they can game the system, but they know how to game the system now. They know that queuing in larger groups makes harder matches that reward you less. It seems unanimous in the community that nobody really wants to queue in a larger queue size, because they know not only will the games be harder, but the SR rewards and negatives aren't in scale. Many of our fans have told this to us when they've tried to organize in teams to have fun with friends, or to actually learn the game on a team level instead of a solo queue level. When you get into a team queue, the matchmaker tries to stack more SR against you. And even when you win, it doesn't seem to be giving you the benefit of being down in SR. It seems to be hindering you, assuming that because you're in an organized group, that you should simply stomp this other team. But when you lose against that other team that has more SR than you, and likely, supposedly, if the matchmaking system worked, is more skilled than you on paper, just less organized, you lose lots of SR. Whereas if you play in the small queue environment, you can start swaying 50 to 100 SR a pop of a match, because that's where it seems that the matchmaking system is trying to reward you for some reason, because it doesn't want you to feel left out playing by yourself, which I can understand. By no means what I'm advocating for, or what I've said in the past, was trying to alienate players that don't have teammates to play with. I mean, I'm going to encourage you to make friends. There's tons of people in our community or on a Discord server or whatever for you to learn the game with, but that's neither here nor there. That's not really the point. The point is, even in a CSGO system, if you played by yourself, because of the way the matchmaking system works, once you get tossed into these games, you reach a ceiling where you have to surpass with game knowledge in order to go up a rank, and that doesn't exist in Overwatch because the matchmaker shelters the majority of the players from organized team play to instead split the matchmaking system without really saying they're splitting it. Some people say, well, shouldn't there just be a team queue? Maybe. That would be fine. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I would argue that we already have a team queue because it already puts you in 5-minute queue times to try to find a team equal to the size of yours. And if it can't find that, it stacks SR against you. And then even when you win those games, it doesn't seem to be giving you the SR reward that you're supposed to get in a natural environment that happens otherwise in the other matchmaking games. Every single odd is stacked against you when you're trying to actually organize in this matchmaking system to the point where it's diluting the natural competitiveness throughout the community. Now, I'm going to try to explain this in an example in order to give you what I mean, because in CSGO there's tons of examples, right? I don't want to bore you with that, but at one rank, there might be no team synergy, and then once you go up to the next rank, players know pop flashes, they're flashing for each other, and though it's not the most organized thing in the world, it's definitely a significant step up. This doesn't exist in Overwatch, because it seems that a lot of players don't actually understand where their role is, and instead are allowed to play in a selfish playstyle that doesn't do their assignment the way it's supposed to work. Now, I think a great example right now is Roadhog, because Roadhog is a sick character still. He's very lethal, and in the right hands can take over a game. He's a devastating character. Counterable now, since you can outplay his hook and whatnot, but that's besides the point. I've seen Roadhogs who go off on mad flanks. Now, some pro players and really top-level players can do this, but they get instant and repeated value quickly from that position. They understand the rules of what their responsibilities are and know when to break them. Whereas it seems in the solo queue mentality playstyle, those players just go off so they get kills and don't die themselves, rather than playing their position, which should be in the death ball. That's where Roadhog is the strongest. You put him in the center of the team fight, and he dishes out massive right-click damage into the enemy team's Rhine Shield, almost guaranteeing you to win that Rhine Shield battle. But furthermore, the death radius of his hook keeps flankers at bay. A lot of players ask me, like, how do I counter a dive comp? Well, a good Roadhog is one of the best ways, because if he's standing in the heart of your own death ball, it's terrifying for a Winston or a Genji or whatever to go harass healers or squishies, because you're always one Roadhog hook away from being insta-killed. So Roadhog played in that position is amazing. Now, experiences that I've had when I go into like a 4 or a 5 queue, and then we get on our team filling in what I assume is a solo queuer-esque type player who normally plays in these solo queue games where there is no team coordination, and now he's playing with us, an organized team, against another team that's mostly an organized team, 4 or 5 players on the enemy team. That enemy team is playing what I would call a team-based game. And our Roadhog goes off on a mad flank, not understanding the rules and roles, and you try to ask him like, oh, can you play in the death ball? Can you zone off this Winston that keeps diving our healers every time? And oftentimes when I ask for things like this, I almost get like laughed out of the comms, and I get confused because I'm just looking at how the pros play. And that's the thing about team play, right? And I want to make this distinct. I don't simply just make rules up. I don't just say, I think the game should be played this way, because that's not how a competitive game actually works. Any sport, any esport, is defined by the state of play, by what works in an organized environment, where both teams are trying their best to maximize the value of the different things that they can do. So quite simply, if they're playing the same exact team comp as us, and their Roadhog is playing his position in the death ball, destroying our Rhine Shield, they have a Rhine Shield, we don't, they get hooks, can CC and win the team fight from there, and our Roadhog goes off and flanks and maybe hooks a Lucio or something, a low impact frag, we simply lose the fight over and over again. And that's what I mean by a lesson. That exists in CSGO. That exists that those playstyles simply cannot be rewarded. You can't proceed in the matchmaking system playing in an incorrect way like that. Now, all rules are meant to be broken, obviously. Like, I might say that this is his playstyle and that's how he should do it, but maybe there's some benefit to bending that rule, if not outright breaking it. That's fine too. But it gets brought out in the success of how this works. This happens in CSGO, for instance. Like a player like Stewie2K is famous for pop flashing himself through smoke at really awkward timings, which might seem suicidal, but his timings get honed to a point where he can break the normal rules of expectations that you think might be in the game. A player like Shadowburn in Overwatch does this, where he plays Genji just about no matter what, and finds the value in the things that he wants to do. That might be okay. And I definitely think we all should be creative with our styles of play, but the point is, if that team play focus was at the heart of the matchmaking system, and you couldn't escape from it, you would have to get better in order to rank up. There would be none of this lucky streaks. There wouldn't be these arguments about being boosted or not being boosted. All that would just wash away, because it would come down to, are you able to play your position and win the game from it? Are you able to do your role? Are you able to do what's required of you to win this game? But that requires a test. That requires something that is very unpopular that we've said in this channel before, but the restrictions and the manipulations of the matchmaking system to sort of segment off pre-made groups to make them have the hardest time possible in the matchmaking system, that has to go away. It has to be the case that if you are a solo queuer and you get matched in with a team, you have to understand how the team game is going to work against that other mostly organized team. Because otherwise, we have this massive land of solo queue-esque playstyles, and it looks like 2 standard deviations away from what the pros play like. And I know when I say that, a lot of players say like, well, of course the pros play better. They're pros. But again, that's not the case in other games when this is handled properly. At the very least, the core fundamentals of the game get followed. The rules of like when to group up, when to disengage, when you should accept death and not use ults, and when you have to use ults. How to time a retake so that you can guarantee that you have the max amount of your team available to do so. These are fundamental set plays in Overwatch that aren't going anywhere and only take a bit of knowledge to know how to do them right. And even at some of the lower ranks in Overwatch, we'd like to expect those understandings of the game to just be normal. And I think it can be because it's just knowledge. It isn't some big skill set that you need to have. You don't need to be able to know how to hit all of your Genji shurikens in Afara's head as she flies through the sky. That's not what I'm asking. And to me, that's where part of the beauty always was in Overwatch anyway, where it was this team game where an incredible amount of skill is underrated in Overwatch, and I go on a separate rant about that. But a huge part of it is about the almost MOBA-esque ability management and team coordination that exists in the game. That's a beautiful thing. I'm not sure why we're not celebrating that. And instead it seems like the matchmaking system is hiding from that, by all means necessary. And I think that's very unfortunate. Now, we've had this ranking system for quite a while now. It's been a long time since I made the Truth About Masters video where I said things that made a lot of the community very mad at me. We got a label on ourselves that we only play 6-stack. Well, we've played it almost entirely in small or solo queue this most recent season. I've been in and out of GM like twice. I swing down to Diamond, swing back up to GM. And if you watch these games on stream, I think we can all say that the understanding of the game through all these different ranks is not where it should be. And the only way to correct that is for us all to learn the game properly. We can't be afraid of a challenge. We can't be afraid of playing against team play, because that's the nature of what Overwatch is. It is about team play. It is about a coordinated play style. And if more and more of the community were more acclimated to playing against larger groups of teams, or they themselves could go in a larger group of team without being completely thrashed by the SR system, there'd be more incentive, but also more of a core theme running through the matchmaker and through the rankings, where definitive rule sets were made for each rank. I don't want it to be the case where some GMs or some diamonds both don't know when to regroup or when to ult. At some point, there should be a line that crosses where just about everybody knows this certain set of skill sets at this rank, and that doesn't happen right now because your enemies are disorganized, your team's disorganized, the matchmaker's disorganized, the win streaks are completely all over the place. We don't have the consistency to emulate the beautiful esport play that happens at the top level of play. And by the way, I gotta say, for Blizzard's concerns, it's difficult for players to watch the top level of play. Part of that is because so many of the rules that I'm talking about don't exist throughout 99% of the matchmaking system. So when a pro team stops and stares at a wall for them to group up properly, some players get confused. I mean, this happens to me. When I post gameplay where I might stand around for a few seconds, people type in the comments, well, what the heck were you doing there? Well, a fundamental play that you're supposed to be doing that everyone needs to know. That's what it is, right? It's a fundamental aspect of how the game has to be played at its best level. Players that don't know that are probably the ones that trickle in every single death and don't know that that's not how you're supposed to play. And how else does anybody learn these lessons that I'm talking about unless we're all coming in contact with higher level play than what we are at currently? That's what ranking up is supposed to be, that you are going up against a higher tier of player and higher states of play, not simply just players that can aim a bit better, because that's not what Overwatch is anyway. It's not this big frag game mode. It isn't Quake. It isn't that we're just all in a big deathmatch, because what if you're a support player? Like, how does that make sense for you? It doesn't. Reinhardt's one of the most crucial heroes in the entirety of Overwatch, and his physical skill set is not that big. I mean, I can't play him for anything, so don't get me wrong. I can't play him. I have no idea what I'm doing when I'm trying to play him, but he's mostly strategy, right? Strategy, positioning, timing. He isn't an FPS character in the way that like McCree is, which is just headshot after headshot. And I want to celebrate this. I want to celebrate the diversity of the types of players that we have in our community, the strength of the competitiveness that I think Overwatch has. I don't want us to hide from it and force the community to be masses of individuals, when instead we could be respecting the game for its deep and well-defined, actually, team play elements. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I know this is a harsh topic, and nobody likes to hear that I want to make your games harder, but that's what ranking up's supposed to be about. If you go from the minor leagues to the major leagues, there's an expectation that the level of play is going to be better. And that's the way ranks can feel and do feel in other games. And I want that for Overwatch. But I also want to know your thoughts, so let me know. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Over 300,000 subscribers strong. Thank you very much. Be sure to hit the bell icon so you can join the notification squad. Also, check out our Twitch page where we stream daily and set up email notifications so you can see when our streams go live. Check out our Discord server for the largest Overwatch community on Discord, and our Twitter for stream announcements, updates, cool clips, and to interact with us. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.